Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of the Workforce Connect conference. It's so great to see everybody, and thanks for those who are returning, and welcome for those who are joining us for the first time here. It's been a great conference. My name is Sarah Bentham, and I'm the director of the Henry Bernick Entrepreneurship Center, and I'll be your moderator for today's conference again. And I acknowledge that I'm currently presenting to you from the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. And let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with First Nation, Métis, Inuit, and Indigenous people whose lands and water across different continents and oceans we've been situated at some point in our lives, and we benefit from today. The land that surrounds us reflects our history, and it's proof of the powerful effects of the hard work that Indigenous peoples dedicated and continue to dedicate to building the community and the territory. They have influenced who we are and what we've become. Alongside our presenting partners, we're dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, Inuit, and all Indigenous peoples worldwide. They're the traditional guardians and enduring caregivers of the place we know as Simcoe County and beyond. We have a great morning full of excellent speakers and thought-provoking conversations today. Our theme today is inclusion and employee development. And I'm proud to introduce and welcome Kelly McKenna, the Executive Director of the Simcoe Muskoka Workforce Development Board and Literacy Network, to begin our conference with opening remarks and provide an update on the labor market. Welcome to the stage, Kelly. I think she'll join us. Oh, maybe she's having trouble getting on. Welcome to 2022. Sometimes there's little tech issues, so I will try and bring her on stage right now. Here we go. I hope everyone has a coffee and something warm. Kelly, where are you? There you are. I see your hand. This is great. Okie dokie. I will try and bring you on stage. There we go. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. And you're on stage, Kelly. Can you turn on your camera and mic? I think you can try now. There you are. Yay.
Well,
welcome, Kelly. Thank you. I'll jump off now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, Sarah, and welcome everyone to day 2. We are really very honored to be one of the presenting sponsors and want to really thank all of the supporting and community partners for putting on this great 2-day event. I'm Kelly McKenna, and I was backstage for a little bit, but now here up on the front stage. I'm the new executive director of the Simcoe Muskoka Workforce Development Board and Literacy Network. And today I'm excited to share with you a bit more about who we are and some of the key insights from our recently released local labor market plan, The Path Forward After COVID. And I am going to share my screen with you. And I believe I am going to just also turn off my camera as my internet is slightly unstable. So there we go. So a little bit more about who we are. As 2021 was yet another year of extraordinary transitions, our organization has also been in transition, with a plan for amalgamation of the Simcoe Muskoka Workforce Development Board and the Simcoe Muskoka Literacy Network into one organization in order to be able to serve our region's workforce and training needs in a unique and fiscally responsible way. And now, as we move through these ever-changing times, we will continue to provide employers, community partners, stakeholders with local labor market information to assist in building a skilled and effective workforce. And assist learners to discover and achieve their training and employment goals. Now, under the Ministry of Labor, Training and Skills Development, we also represent an established network of employment and essential skills service providers throughout the county who are the boots on the ground. They are there to help job seekers, workers, and employers with advice, services, and grants. Grants such as the Canada-Ontario Job Grant that provides up to $10,000 in financial support to employers who wish to purchase training for their employees. Or you can find out more about hiring an apprentice and the available funding supports. You can hire a young person through employment services and learn more about new financial incentives for small businesses. And the new Skills Ontario Pilot is intended to support partnerships that connect employers with the employment and training services required to recruit and advance workers with the right skills. For example, a provincial-wide long-term care facility is applying this program to recruit and train staff with pre-PSW skills for eventual employment with the company. It's been a success. And there are also many essential skill upgrading supports for employers and job seekers that are offered through the network, such as Soft Skills Solutions, a free program offered at many employment resource and adult upgrading centers. This program is facilitated in person or online and covers important soft skills such as communication, collaboration, and the FAST assessment tool for skilled trades. This helps learners assess their skills in 3 subject areas: math, communications, and concepts of science for a designated trade. And the learner, by completing these assessments, will be able to determine if there's areas of additional study required to be successful in that trade. And we also have essential skills upgrading, again, available for free at many employment resource and adult upgrading centers to help learners and job seekers with upgrading their skills in 6 key areas, such as finding, using information, or understanding and using numbers. Now, did you know there are over 30 service locations across the county? And thanks to the County of Simcoe, we have this great way to find out where these resources are by logging on to Work in Simcoe County job site under the Job Maps tab. And by clicking on the left-hand tools, you can choose any one of these community supports and get connected to your local service provider. Well, now I'd like to switch gears and share with you some of those key insights from our latest local labor market plan. For the last 25 years, our organization has played a key role in the labor market analysis by providing background information on industry and employment trends in Simcoe County and the District of Muskoka. And this year, our local labor market plan, The Path Forward After COVID, and for the second year in a row, has focused on the impacts of COVID on our local businesses and labor market. COVID has created immediate disruptions, which also point to lingering challenges ahead. So let us take a look at those disruptions. At the start of the pandemic, we all know there was a sharp rise in unemployment. But unfortunately, subsequent lockdowns resulted in renewed increases in unemployment each time. And while these disruptions were felt across the entire province, the impacts really varied by geography, population, industry, and types of work. And the consequences were especially difficult for individuals working in lower skilled occupations and or precarious work. For example, temporary part-time employees. In fact, youth unemployment rose to 3 times that of adults. And on the other hand, individuals working in jobs that typically require a university degree experienced far less unemployment, particularly since many of these jobs could often be carried out remotely from home. And one of the lingering challenges will be with long-term unemployment. Unfortunately, this has increased significantly during the pandemic, and it will continue to be a challenge for the next while. Now, according to the 2021 data set from Stats Canada, business counts for Simcoe County did not appear to lose as many businesses as other parts of the province did during the pandemic, which is great news. One likely reason for this is our communities have been experiencing significant population growth over the last 5 years. And this growth contributes to the demand for businesses to service the larger populations. And from this data set, it also shows us that in our region, the sectors with the most registered businesses is actually in the real estate, rental, and leasing sector. The second most registered businesses in the county is in construction. And the third is in professional scientific technology fields. Now, some of the results from our employer survey also gave us insights into the impacts of COVID on our local labor market with regards to hiring, skills, remote work, and vaccination policies. And really, there's much more, but I can't possibly cover it all today. So regarding employers' hiring intentions over the next 3 months, employers in Simcoe County appear poised to increase hiring new workers across all 3 skill levels. And in the skills category, we asked employers what the top skills were they found candidates lacked during the interview process. And the results highlighted that employers were most concerned about employability skills, which included punctuality, taking direction, and reliability. The next biggest concern for employers during the interview process was the candidates having the right skills for the job. And the third was leadership skills, really having the ability to supervise, manage, and motivate coworkers. Another interesting insight from the employer survey was employers' views on remote work, which revealed that the larger the business, the more likely they expected workers would work from home. And the smaller the business, the likelihood they expected them to come in to the office. And regarding vaccination policies, they were really very dependent on the size of the establishment. Firms with 1 to 4 employees, 61% had mandatory vaccination policies. However, firms with 100 or more employees, only 18% were less likely to have a mandatory vaccination policy. Well, As this recovery from COVID takes hold, it will be important to target assistance and resources to those categories of individuals and those businesses which have been hardest hit by the events of our last 2 years. As well, in a very tight labor market, employers will benefit from assistance in recruitment and retention activities. This will need to include putting in place employment practices that can help distinguish a business as an employer of choice. So thank you. I hope some of those key insights from our local labor market plan will be helpful. And please remember the entire 120-page document with many more insights is available for download at the smwdb.com website. And now, coming up next, please welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Lisa Belanger. We will have opportunity for a Q&A after Dr. Lisa's presentation. And if you have a question during the presentation, please type it into the chat function. You will find the chat button at the bottom of your screen. We will address as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. Now, Dr. Lisa Belanger is an award-winning researcher, innovator, and CEO of Conscious Works, a consulting firm teaching habits, skills, and work design to help leaders and teams be proactive with mental health and performance. Dr. Lisa holds a PhD in behavioral medicine, an executive MBA, and is a certified exercise physiologist and high performance specialist. Prior to the pandemic, she was traveling the world with her 2-month-old baby, visiting organizations to explore company culture, leadership, and the ability to de-stress from work. Dr. Lisa is the founder of Knight's Cabin, a national charity that offers wellness programming to cancer survivors. And she's also an author of 2 books, Inspire Me Well, Taking Control of Your Health, and A Cup of Mindfulness for the Busy and Restless. Her greatest accomplishments are climbing Mount Kilimanjaro with her father, running the Paris Marathon, and snack holding for 2 tiny humans. So please help me welcome Dr. Lisa Belanger.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone. I hope you are well caffeinated and ready to go. All right, let's go. So we're talking about future-proofing learning and development. And
Lisa, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you turn on your camera?
Yes.
Awesome. I know I hate interrupting you. I'm so sorry.
No worries. I will start my rant over again. So we're talking about future-proofing learning and development. Learning and development is an opportunity for all of us, no matter how large or small your company is. I'm going to give examples today, different case studies, and I'm going to use a large corporation. That could be Target, Walmart, McDonald's. But what I really want you to pay attention to is what could work for you. So there'll be different examples that'll fit different companies and different strategies, and depending on who your workforce is. As many of you know, education is doors opening. It can change lives. It can be so significant. It is something that we can integrate into all parts of our business if we're a little bit creative about it. What we've seen over the last 10 years has so rapidly changed, like many other parts of business, in the last 2 years. What we're seeing now is learning and development is opportunity for diversity and inclusion. It's opportunity for retaining and attracting employees. It's something that can make you an employer of choice. And it's not just about the formal learning opportunities. Where do these informal opportunities sit, and what can we do to move the needle forward for ourselves and for our employees? So as mentioned in the opening segment, where we're going with HR or business or workforce, however you want to look at it, is really addressing the shift in this great resignation, the expectations of employees, what we can do for that, and the new world of work. There's no way around it. There's the big four consulting companies that have been researching the future of work for decades, and it's now. It is simply now. What we're seeing as shifted and what was necessary for leadership skills is completely changing, with empathy being the number one skill. And it is a skill. It's a learning, it's a learned trait. There's different workforce demands as addressed in this initial session. Is it remote work? Is it in person? Is it a hybrid approach? And from a learning development perspective, there's such an emphasis now on not doing a one size fits all, but making different choices for different employees and what suits them. What we're looking for is really professional growth, of course, but a personal growth as well. I'll talk a little bit more about this, but what we're seeing is a whole person leadership becoming predominant right now in today's world of work. People will leave bad leadership. So from an attraction and retainment part of our jobs, how do we get that? How do we learn for ourselves? And how do we teach others? In research by McKinsey, we saw that a lot of this new learning and development is tailoring learning opportunities in a blended approach. So not getting away from this one time, here's a workshop about XYZ, and creating learning journeys. This is something I'm working with a lot of clients on. So yes, I offer keynotes and workshops, but how can you lengthen and really dig into these topics so that they're learned, that they're uptake, and that there is this cognitive shift?
So thank you so much for that. So I will now be able to turn it over to Morgane Dunnett from the Local Immigration Partnership at the County of Simcoe, and they can introduce our next speaker. And thank you, Dr. Lisa. And Morgane, if you are able to turn your camera and mic on, got some platform glitches this morning. It's a Wednesday. Oh, there you are. Okay. Jenna, if you're out there in the audience, if you're able to help Morgane get into the platform, seems like we have a little bit of a glitch going on. Maybe we'll take 2 minutes to just fix this. And for anyone that wants to go grab another coffee or take a little refreshment, we'll take 2 minutes. Be right back. She's here. I think we can still, if you want to, if anyone needs a break, please feel free to do so. Morgane, I'm glad you're up here. Do you want to just take 2 minutes and then I'll turn it over to you?
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it happens. It's a glitch. It's all good. Hi, everybody, and welcome back. As our speaker yesterday, Andrew Au, said, it's important to take breaks, and that's what he's bringing into the future with him after what we've had happen over the last 2 years. And I am really, really excited that Morgane's camera turned on. So I will turn everything over to Morgane Dunnett to introduce our next speaker, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sarah. My apologies. I was not able to turn on my webcam or my microphone. So thank you very much, Jenna, for your help in this. Good morning, everybody. My name is Morgane Duneau, and I'm the program coordinator at the Simcoe County Local Immigration Partnership. The Local Immigration Partnership work is a community-based planning designed to improve immigrant outcomes in Simcoe County. And I'm just going to build on Dr. Belanger's. She said something in her presentation that really resonated with us, which are languages open countries, and also really are kind of a facilitator in learning. And we have a lot of newcomers and immigrants in Simcoe County. In 2016, we had 13% of our population in Simcoe County that were newcomers and immigrants. And this population spoke over 110 different languages. So really resonated with me when she said languages open countries. The local immigration partnership work is guided by the community settlement strategy that was developed in partnership with the Partnership Council as well as the Local Immigration Partnership, and it was published in 2012. There will be a new community settlement strategy developed and published next year. Today, we welcome Danielle Servan-Gil from the World Education Services. And the World Education Services, or WES, is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to helping international students, immigrants, and refugees achieve their educational and career goals in Canada and in the US. For more than 45 years, WES has set a standard of excellence in the field of international academic credential evaluation. Through WES Global Talent Bridge, the organization joins with institutional partners, community-based organizations, and policymakers to help immigrants and refugees who hold international fully utilize their talent and education to achieve their academic and professional goals. Its philanthropic arm, the West Marion SFA Fund, supports Catalyst leaders and organizations working to build inclusive economies and to ensure that immigrant and refugees can achieve their aspiration and thrive. Please join me in welcoming Danielle.
Thank you very much, Morgan. It's really a pleasure to share some time with all of you this morning. Thank you very much to the County of Simcoe for the invitation. In today's presentation, and following an amazing presentation by Dr. Lisa Belanger, I wanted to spend some time with all of you, just sharing some of the strategies and tips from a tool that the WES, in partnership with a coalition of partners across the country, developed recently. So that will be the first half of the presentation, and then we'll have some time to actually go into breakout sessions in which we will be discussing and really learning from all of you, your experiences, what are the challenges that you're facing in tapping into this immigrant talent, as well as some of the strategies and best practices that you're currently using to address some of those challenges. Before I begin, I will be sharing my presentation, so hopefully this works out. I think it looks good to me. So before I begin, I think it will be helpful to give all of you a little bit of background as to why WES is working in this space of engaging with employers and supporting employers' practices in hiring and retaining immigrant and refugee talent. In 2020, you will all remember the beginnings of the pandemic were really uncertain. There were fears that the pandemic would have disproportionate effects on immigrants. And WES reached out to immigrant employment councils across the country to lead a national coalition that was really looking at exploring ways to ensure immigrant inclusion. We held a very successful Twitter chat. We were trending in Canada. As part of that Twitter chat, a lot of employers joined the conversation and really requested resources to like where to go to find a one-stop shop resource to help them in attracting and integrating immigrant talent into the workforce. And that is how WES, together with the National Coalition, developed this resource, the National Playbook. I think that the link has been shared with all of you in the resources for this conference. Now, we recognized early on that while the playbook does a very good job at compiling practices that work, local influences like the labor market, the geography, the type of industry, the attitudes and community dynamics are all real forces that need to be considered in building solutions that work, especially for local SMEs. So we launched a pilot in 3 communities that I will mention briefly in a minute, to test a model and methodology to support workforce actors and immigrant serving organizations at the community level to co-design solutions that include immigrants jointly with employers. And I think this is very important. The pilot is really looking at putting employers' operational needs at the core of their development of these resources. So we chose. So these are, as you will see, the members of the coalition, and we chose, as I was mentioning, 3 communities for the pilot. All 3 were chosen for being home to a high number of immigrants, have expanding job markets, and also are already making progress on plans and strategies for including immigrant in local economic development. I won't go into the specifics and details about the pilots. I will just mention that after roughly a year process with these communities, in which we were really baking in employer insights throughout the process, we're about to be launching some co-design toolkits in the next few months, and they will become available on our website. What is the employer playbook? So the employer playbook is really trying to be a one-stop shop for employers with practical strategies and tools to bolster immigrant inclusion at all stages of the employment cycle. I think this is quite important. We're looking at recruiting, hiring, onboarding, and retaining talent. I should mention that the tool right now is still in a PDF format, but as part of the process of localizing the resource to all these 3 communities, we're also digitizing the tool and making it more accessible in meal-sized bites for employers to easily consume and access the resources that they need. Some examples of these practices are listed in the graphic here. Anything from defining essential and non-essential skills and duties, using different techniques in advertising positions to reach newcomers, address internal biases and how these can surface in interviewing, looking more closely at fostering inclusive leadership, implementing a buddy system, mentorship within the organization. And I'll share some of these strategies in a moment, because I think that was the objective of this session, is to really dive into some of those practical tips. But this provides you hopefully with an overview of like the range of resources. And if you're interested in learning more, you are most welcome to download the report at this stage. And once it becomes available online, we can also share that information with you. One of the questions as we engage with conversations with employers across the country that we kept hearing is like, where are the newcomers? There seems to be a gap between supply and demand. How do we find these newcomer talents? How do we tap into it? I would like to, for all of us and Wes as an employer ourselves, to really take a step back and think about these issues differently. As employers, we need to ask ourselves, what is it that I can do to attract immigrants to the workplace in the first place? How can I shape my hiring practices to make my business more appealing to a broader and a more diverse group of individuals? And how can I be more competitive and create workplaces where immigrants can thrive? A first set of considerations is with regards to the inclusive job descriptions. If you go on the playbook, you'll see there's a whole array of like recommendations on how small changes can really go a long way. In one of the sessions we held with employers in Moncton, one employer was saying that something as simple as indicating in the job description the salary range, for example, increase their number of applications of newcomers by 50%. And that just comes to show how small changes can really make a huge difference. The playbook has multiple tips. You will see here that some of you may already be doing this, but for those of you who may not, a diversity statement included in the job posting could be another way to attract skilled immigrant talent. There are many versions out there, and they can really show to applicants that you really care and about what they're bringing their whole selves. They're bringing their whole selves to the organization. Also, the playbook mentions eliminating years of experience as a predictor of performance, and instead maybe listing expected competencies. That can be another great way of attracting newcomers who may not have exactly the years of experience that are equivalent to what the job posting is requiring. I'd like to take a minute to just talk about the issue of adding the salary range in the job description, in the job posting, excuse me. According to Stats Canada, female employees aged 25 to 54 earn 88 cents on the dollar compared to men in terms of their average hourly wage in 2019. That is a wage gap of 12.1%. Now, if we look at male immigrants, they received weekly earnings that were over 50% less than the earnings of Canadian-born workers with the same level of total experience in education, 50%. For female immigrants, the size of this effect was somehow lower, but the gap was still substantial at approximately 44%. And this is why including the job range in the salary range in the job description is really so important for newcomers. Not only is a way for all candidates generally to assess whether they can afford living in the county or whether it is worth for them to actually relocate and work over there, but really is looking about pay equity and access to commensurate employment. So this is about how to tap, just one set of tips on how to tap into this talent. Once immigrants have applied and you have a pool of candidates, the playbook also has lots of recommendations on how to make changes to your processes. I'll just take a few minutes to discuss some of the ways in which we can address our own internal biases. I think understanding that we all carry biases is necessary and important to help. It is a necessary step to help us have a fair hiring decision. 3 tips from the employer playbook to help mitigate these bias: the interview panel, how to screen resumes, and credential evaluations and competency-based testing. Very quickly, when it comes to leveraging existing diversity on the screening panel, an invitation to consider how diversity on the screening panel can actually offer different perspectives from yours in the process. Some of the employers that we have been engaging in these communities, there's small and medium enterprises, family-owned businesses, and they wonder, it's like, how can I actually have even a panel? Like, hiring decisions are made by myself, together with payroll and everything else. There are community services, and this I'll defer to Morgan to possibly connect you to those. In some communities, employers actually invite members from the immigrant employment councils or from the local immigration partnerships to sit at some of these interviews just to provide a different perspective. So that's something that can be an option available to smaller businesses. And when we talk about diversity in the panel, we're not just talking about immigration background, we're also talking about gender, age, life experience, race, cultural background, etc. Another set of tips, I won't go too much into detail because it would take us more than the time we have allocated for this session, but is how important it is to review resumes and some of the considerations to keep in mind that we're not discarding immigrant applicants on the basis of some of these issues. So you will see some considerations about the readability, the spelling, grammatical errors, an invitation there to consider that there are different forms of English. I myself was born and raised in Spain, and it took me a while to familiarize myself with the Canadian form of English, because all we learn in Europe is UK, British English. So some of those considerations may be important as well. I won't spend too much time on length of time at previous job, but I would do say that sometimes we find gaps in employment history, particularly when it comes to newcomer candidates. And that can be for many different reasons. If the candidate came to Canada, is currently a permanent resident, but came to Canada as a refugee, there may be very clear reasons as to why they could not have formal employment over the past 2 to 3 years. They may have been employed, but not in a way that could be proved. But there are also gaps in the candidate's work history that may be coming from visa processing delays. So sometimes immigrant professionals have to go through really lengthy visa processing times, and thereby that may delay their ability to secure work and creates that employment gap. Other considerations is around type of positions held. I was mentioning that job postings that have competencies listed rather than years of experience may be important. Sometimes we may want to see that the person has actually held the same type of position that we want to fill in our company. However, equivalencies change across the country and across the world. So the naming conventions about specific positions that have been held may be different. So keeping an open mind to understanding what are some of the responsibilities, the achievements that a person accomplished in a specific position, rather than looking at the type of or the name of the position itself. And then finally, a consideration also around education. Unless sometimes when there is a specific license that is required, so that is clear, we need to go through specific processes. But education combined with work experience and the capacity and the know-how that can be acquired through formal accreditation, but also through life and work experience, are very important considerations when attracting newcomer talent. And this is for the reasons that I outlined earlier. Sometimes people have actually been involved in situations that have led them to have very broad set of skills applicable to some of the needs that your company may have, but that cannot be proven through formal education or through formal work experience. And the last thing I would mention is credential evaluation. So evaluation of international credentials can often be a little bit of a challenge. So not understanding what the equivalency of a specific diploma can be. This is just a resource. We can share the link with you. Some of you may already be aware of it, but WES has a degree equivalency tool that is free to use for employers and that or individuals, and can help you learn more about what the degree is comparable to in Canada. So as you have applicants and you're not so sure, this can provide you an interesting perspective as well. Just to give you a sense, like candidates that come to Canada for immigration purposes have to go through a process of credential evaluation. WES is one of the 5 agencies that have approved by RSCC for immigration purposes. And so some of those newcomer candidates will actually have already that degree equivalency report as part of their application. So that is something also that you can look into to reassure that the person has the formal education that is required for the job. I'm conscious of time, so I'll let Morgan tell me like how much more time we have. I have another couple of resources, but I can also share those with you later on.
I think we have time to, what you're providing us with is so invaluable. So if you'd like to share those, that would be really great. We're here for resources. Absolutely.
That's good. Okay. So then we've gone through the recruitment process. Again, there's much more in the playbook. You can look at specific guidelines for preparing your interview questions for the panel, looking at some of the informal language that happens in those interviews. So there's a lot more, but just in the interest of time, I'll touch on another element of the employment cycle. So once the newcomer employee has been hired, a great way to enhance their transition into the workplace is through a buddy system. An informal buddy really helps to ensure a successful integration into the workplace culture. And this applies to everybody, not only newcomers, but there are specific challenges that newcomer colleagues will have. And so basically this body will be someone that is not only supporting the person to learn about the systems, about the culture of the organization, but it can also support them in their integration and their settlement needs in the new community. So let's say that someone just arrived to Canada, their first entry point was Toronto, but then they're applying for jobs in Barrie, and they decide that they want to relocate their family over there. So understanding what services and supports are available to your employee in the community is a critical element to ensuring their successful integration, which will lead to greater retention. So there's lots of data out there. I won't bore you with that. That shows that onboarding is the key to retention. So having a successful onboarding experience is critical if we want to ensure that we don't have a big turnover in our organizations. What are some of the responsibilities of a body? So the body will be providing guidance regarding the day-to-day aspects of work, provide encouragement, connecting to resources. It's really that reliable, motivated, single point of contact for a new employee to answer basic questions. Something we also got in some of the conversations with communities across the country was, again, my companies, like me and my wife and my two cousins, like how do I actually free up time for someone to be a buddy? This is an invitation also to think broadly. There are very interesting mentorship opportunities that are offered to employers, certainly in Ontario. Not so sure about the situation in Simcoe, but there are programs that even from a virtual point of view, you can pair employees in similar professional categories from other companies that can really support that integration process and that element of like sharing experiences and challenges in the workplace. And finally, the last thing that I will just mention, again, this applies to all employees. But now that you have hired a new staff member, a critical consideration, particularly for newcomers, is what we call the 3 Ps in the playbook. It's suggesting organizing your orientation process around people, performance, and paperwork. People. So who are the people that need to meet with a new employee? What type of meetings should be organized? Should they be social events, group onboarding activities, assigning a body, meeting with senior leaders, team building opportunities? I think what is most important here to consider when it comes to hiring newcomers is what will those meetings look like? What preparation goes into that meeting to making sure that integration, which is a two-way process, is about the newcomer integrating into a work culture and the old colleagues in the company really being open up to sharing and to understanding the new perspective that the newcomer is bringing. So providing with your staff with some intercultural competency training opportunities, awareness raising opportunities, having a conversation and preparation for the newcomers to join the company are all very valuable supports that can really make a huge difference in the integration process of a new hire. Performance, similarly, things like job shadowing, setting expectations, providing feedback, HR check-ins, coaching, offering training. Work cultures differ across the world, and we need to realize that some of the systems that we have very successfully developed in Canada and North America may not be familiar to colleagues. So what does a performance evaluation look like? Maybe back home there was actually not strong systems for performance evaluation. So really taking the time to discuss expectations, to discuss some of these processes and what they entail is very valuable at the onset of the onboarding. And finally, similarly for the paperwork. I had no idea about what benefits package looked like until I came to Canada. There are none in Spain. So really taking the time to walk people through the paperwork, help them understand the rationale behind different handbooks, the employee handbook, company policies, any other resources and forms, and how to use them. It will really go a long way in supporting your new camera employees. And I think I'll leave it at that, Morgan.
Hi, it's me, Sarah, again, Daniel.
Sorry, I can't see myself. Hold on.
No, you're fine. And if you want to unshare your screen, there was a question, and then we'll do a little bit of framing for our discussion tables, which I think is going to be a really rich experience too. I just wanted to say, your talk came at such an opportune time for us. We're adding someone to our team, and I hadn't really considered what that onboarding process is going to look like. And I think, it's something to consider even as we transition maybe back to some in person, like that onboarding may have happened virtually, months ago, but it has to happen again as we go back to a place that maybe people aren't familiar with. So I just really appreciate what you shared today. I think it's amazing. And I love that peer buddy system. I think that's something that's missing in a lot of organizations. So the question that I had here, again, from Rob, our friend, is the engagement process the same or similar if you're hiring a remote worker versus someone physically relocating? And does Wes prefer one method over the other?
I'm sure that by now all of us are familiar with the challenges of everything virtual and remote. One of the things that we always hear from employers that have been successfully onboarding remotely is stressing communication and the culture around communication. So the way in which people from different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, communicate differs. So some people may feel that actually texting on Teams, my boss, is not appropriate. So being very intentional and very clear about what is expected from remote communication, I think, is one point. And the second element is about adding multiple touch points. So we just went through a round of hiring as well at Wes, and we've been doing some virtual onboardings. And we have been providing opportunities really on a daily basis to check in with new hires, even if it's just for 5 minutes, just to make sure that everything is on track and that the person is feeling that all the information they need is being provided to them. In terms of preference, I mean, I am a big in person, like I just love people. So I think it really depends on the nature of your business. So if remote work is something that is here to stay, I would encourage you to really look into best practices. There's lots of very good resources on LinkedIn Learning and others on how to successfully manage teams and build team spirit and culture remotely. If this is something that you're doing temporarily or out of the COVID pandemic need, I would say nothing substitutes in-person interaction, in my opinion.
I completely agree. Thank you so much, Daniel. We appreciate this presentation so much. I took so many notes, and I really, really value the expertise that you brought today. Thank you so much. So with that, I'm going to frame what the next bit of today looks like. We'll now be going into our roundtable discussions. And this platform is really great for that opportunity because you'll be able to have more intimate conversations with the people that are seated at your table. So a little bit of a refresher for those that are joining us new today. The Remo platform operates almost like a conference center. And so when you go back out on the floor, which we'll do so after I just give you a little bit of instruction, you'll be seated at a table of 8. You have the ability to jump from table to table by double clicking on an empty chair. And so if you choose to do so, you can double click onto an empty chair. The other piece that you'll notice is that there's an elevator along the left side of your screen. And so that elevator actually takes you to different floors within the platform. each floor is going to look exactly the same, but what would be different is the people that are there. So given the number of people we have today, I think that we'll all stay down on the first floor. So if you find that you're on a second floor or the third floor, come on down to the first floor and we'll start to fill that up with all of the people that are here so that we have really good, rich discussions. What you'll notice as well, and you'll see it as soon as you jump back down there, you get a camera and a mic option down at the bottom of your screen. And so you're going to want to turn your camera and mic on if you feel comfortable in doing so when you're having those table discussions. If you're more introverted and you prefer the chat function, there are private table chat functions. So if you look at the chat feature, you'll notice that you're, let's say, sitting at table 2, you can speak amongst your table mates using that chat function. Our team will be down at the very bottom in the long table that shows there, and that's going to be your tech support table. So if you find you're having trouble turning your camera or mic on, or if there's something that you'd like some additional instruction on, we're going to be down there, and we are happy to help make sure that this is a really good experience for you. We're going to pop all of the questions for the table discussions into the chat. So once we go back to the floor, you'll notice that the table discussions are in the chat piece. We'll come back together around 11 o'clock and have a little bit more of a discussion, and then there will be the opportunity for you to do some networking after that if you choose to do so. So I hope that you enjoy the next bit of the presentation and take this time to really make new connections and network. And also, I think the most valuable thing is really sharing your thoughts and your experiences around these topics. I think we're going to learn so much from each other in addition to what we learned already from the experts that were here today. So thank you all. Enjoy your next bit. We'll be down at the bottom in the tech support table, and we'll see you back here at 11 o'clock.